Thank you for joining me. We're doing the 2018 predictions. Yes, I know it's already 2018. I apologize for the lateness. A lot going on. All right, so let's launch into it. We have quite a few segments here, and I've decided to split it to America, Canada, a bit of Mexico, and then we're going to do another video which you'll probably have the same information as this particular opening one on that one. But the slides are different. I've given far more information on slides instead of a verbal, if you don't mind. I found that while teaching 100 classes, we are progressing into a far more visual world, especially with youngsters. Not any teenagers, I'm talking about even my age. So I've decided to do a lot more visuals, and that is the why I've actually put in a lot more slides explaining, and I'll go over that briefly. Again, thank you for joining me, and we're going to launch in. I'm just going to go to an overview of what I've decided to do. I've done the weather. Now, I actually filmed the weather on Christmas Eve, and that was on 12/24/17. So a lot of the weather forecasts for the blizzards have been unfortunately coming true. Now, even though this is a large one that we're in, I did say, I gave dates, maybe slightly off, I suppose, but this is nothing to what it is going to be in February, at the end of January, February. There are going to be 3 major brutal storms, and even though we are looking, and I have put this in on the one of my slides, that we could, not exactly could be, but we are entering a shift of climate, including an ice, like a mini ice age. I've already referred that in my book, which actually I put in about 4 years ago, which I haven't got out. It's the epoch succession. But because of the extreme heats and the extreme colds, which again we're going to be breaking records, as I predicted all these years, huge amount being broken at the moment for the cold. The heat's been quite a bit last year, individual records, state records, etc. And this is all over the world. So please just be patient with me, and I'll go over a few of the slides. Yes, we're getting old, hence the glasses. Okay, so La Nina, we were in a La Nina year, and because of this, we actually kind of, how can I say this, pumped up. We went a bit mega with the weather and more extreme, unfortunately, but that's something that I wouldn't say will die down. We're still in La Nina, not exactly the tail end, but we're close to the tail end, but we are going to see the effects of that throughout the world. And I put in not all the countries, but most of the countries I see that's going to get affected. The monsoons are actually getting worse because of that, and that's in the European/Asia video, which is after this one I'll be filming. So what I've done is given you a lot of slides. Yes, it is a bit longer, and it's up to you. I'll try and put marks. I'm trying to get this up quickly. I promised to put it out today, and I haven't done that, obviously, since I'm filming. But yeah, I don't think anybody realizes how long it takes not only to read for the future, but actually put these slides together. So hopefully a few of you would appreciate that. Right, so regarding weather, just on an overview, there is obviously a section for snow and blizzards and freezing rain. We are going to experience far more freezing rain, ice storms, where the weather is going into mega extreme is the only word I can give you. But the blizzards are really drenching, and they're lasting for not 2 or 3 days, but 4 to 8 days at times, where I've called one a kind of a double header, and you'll see that on the slides later. and intermittent after this. Within the slides, I've also put the predictions, which are obviously video. So I'm just going over the overview of it. Okay, extreme cold and heat, we're going to experience the same thing continuing. We are going to, in one state, actually, and it's more Death Valley, Arizona / a bit of Nevada, going to experience even more higher heat. We're looking at about 123 to 1, maybe for a few hours to one day, I see 125. So we are actually breaking records there as well. Okay, tornadoes. I know quite a few tornado chasers actually follow me. I have put an X section in there, but this year what I've done is, not to get you too excited here, but what I did was a tornado chart. Now you'll see the chart, and it's like this, and it's in the video on its own as a slide, but I've given you what tornadoes and clusters. We're going to see a lot of clusters that we're going to see in each month. Okay, now I don't know how accurate I've been. I really haven't. I believe I've been pretty near accurate if they're following me, but that I decided to do to help people who are living in these places. And I didn't even put where they are, but just to know that I've already put the video up, as in the more middle corridor going left. We are going to see, now last year I did say that there would be tornadoes in Florida, which a lot of people thought, quite laughing at me. And of course there were, and that was due to Hurricane Irma. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a tornado independent of any other weather systems. So I am seeing a tornado to 2 there, and they're really EF zeros, and that's associated with the hurricanes. Now the hurricanes, let's quickly go over that. Apparently I've been accurate with it. I had projected that there would be 17 hurricanes. Let me do the hurricanes, and as I had predicted last year, I had said there would be 17 tornadoes with 2 to 3 actual significant ones. So upon the research, I found out that I was actually dead on. It was 17 actual hurricanes, and there were 2, obviously, Cat 5s and 1 Cat 4. Now these significant ones were, just again, I put you'll see actually following this, and it's one of the first slides to come in, is that I put down which ones I was referring to. Hurricane Irma was one I was particularly interested, and I was very concerned that people were thinking it was going to hit Miami, and I kept on it was nagging me, and I put up a separate video, which some of you have seen, where I did say that Hurricane Irma is not going to hit directly into Miami. It would actually go via the left, and I actually put the track down and talked about it. And yes, it was affected by the hurricane, but it wasn't a direct hit to Miami, which is what they were looking at. So, and all the other subsequent states that got affected as well. So it's dead on that one too, Cat 5. Now, another one that was the North Carolina coast was Hurricane Maria. Hurricane Harvey, again, I got somewhat right too, and a few others I didn't. I just concentrated on the category 5s and 4s. By the way, I got so excited when I was doing the videos. You will see that I was saying not any levels, I was calling it F1, F2, F4, 5, and obviously that's a Fujita scale, and it's categories, not the Fs. So I apologize, I've even put a slide out for that. Anyway, can't be perfect, and I certainly don't want to be. So that was that little thing, flooding. We did a lot of flooding last year. Again, I strongly advise people to, and when I do readings, I always tell my clients why I go backwards. There are several reasons why, and two main ones is why you could be talking to the wrong person. They could be just not exactly blowing smoke at you, or just making it up. It's very dangerous, I know, but I would strongly advise people to trust their intuition and know if somebody is not accurate with them. That's why I go backwards and I touch on events in their lives which actually have changed them so significantly for the rest of their lives. But not only that, it is something that you need to look at and release, and that's why I go backwards. But it's a confirmation that I've connected, okay? So that in the same way, I do the review to let people know that actually quite a few of the events did come true. And that's why you didn't do it really last year, I don't believe. A lot's happened, that's why I can't even remember that. But in this year, I decided to do the review, and it took me 4 days to do all that. Actually 2 weeks to do the research and put the slides in. So if you have time, you might like to look at that. And for verification, it's not a review of all of them. I didn't have time to, unfortunately, do everything. There were so many predictions I made last year, even though I was moving, so it was quite a different year. Anyway, so back to these predictions. Another prediction, all these are categories in the new 2018, and I've put again school shootings, which I'm afraid I was accurate, and that's on the review. And that is, there were quite a few. I did a list of mass shootings, which unfortunately were quite a few in America, and around the world too, but mostly I touched on America. So basically, in this section, in this new one, what I'm doing is putting more or less the same flow line, and that is with snows and blizzards, the weather, all the other categories, flooding. Yes, we're going to go and have a more severe flooding, and I put down the significant storms that we're going to experience, and more or less listed those and what states that are going to be affected by it. Sorry, Texas, you're going to get hit again. One thing I did say earlier, and that was last year when I was filming the weather, is that Florida, I hate to say it, if you're in futures, doing futures and options, you're kind of going to, if you bargained on a freeze, that's what's going to happen with Florida. Most of America is going to have, like the top half, just over half actually, America is going to be in severe blizzard. So that's why they're even saying ice storms and a mini ice age, which is what I have been seeing for the last 4 or 5 years. But this is only the tip of it. So just be warned. It's not every single year as the severity, but we are looking at quite a severe year here to this year and probably next. And I'll try and do the videos, the predictions for 2019 earlier. Okay. That's, if I don't do any more from now on, I'll let you know. Okay, so backfires I decided to do, which I have been doing, but I put in fires because they are affecting California. Obviously it's devastated, never had so many fires, but that's due to the high heat and the drying and all kinds of other weather. El Nino, king waves. Now king waves, I had said, and this is in Europe, that I had seen king waves which are larger than normal waves. Some can reach over 120 feet. There were significant king waves, not as big as that I saw hit Ireland and Scotland, a few others. So I've put in a section for king waves. Again, the weather is changing. The oceans are changing. Some oceans are actually dying. And that is part of the book of the epoch succession. Okay? So, dust storms, haboobs. Now the haboobs are really the mega dust storms in Saudi Arabia, which is going to get hit, which I also got right. But this, I've put in details on that one too. Okay? I've got clients all over the world, and also I've got viewers on YouTube all over the world, and I know they're very interested in what's going on in their area. Monsoons are, unfortunately, I was right again because of a cyclone, and it affected an inlet where it was Bangladesh, India and Sri Lanka, and the monsoons unfortunately had already hit them a few weeks before, so there was a lot of loss of life, let alone homes, and sadly it was devastating for that whole area. We are going to see another one, quite a few this year as well. The typhoons, I was right unfortunately, and on the tracking there as well. Okay, which typhoons and cyclones I put in. Terrorism around the world, I also did that, and that's more or less listed all the places where the terrorist activity would be. And I would like to put in here that there is going to be a new formation, or has been a new formation for the last 2 years, and this is an extremist group, kind of a split of ISIS, partial Taliban members I see, but I believe the FBI has been watching them, which is good. But they are going to be far more active, and they're going to be starting being active and aggressive to the stronger countries, i.e. America, UK, France. I'm afraid again it's going to be hit with attacks, and I unfortunately was correct with the all the predictions on the attacks in Paris and just outside Paris, London, I said, Texas. All of these unfortunately happened. So just be warned, be aware. Again, I grew up in London, and we were used to the bombings, not used to them, but we were aware of it, and we knew how to just be aware of our circumstances and our surroundings. And if your intuition's saying go left instead of going right, or something holds you up, don't think twice about it, let it go. Just as when 9/11 happened, heard obviously stories about many people why their cars wouldn't start, or they couldn't get to work, and they were saved. I will be doing all kinds of books and videos later regarding what is on the other side and how they protect you. This is completely down the road. I wouldn't say probably next year, but probably later on this year as well, if I can do it. Okay, back to the 2018 predictions. Mass shootings, I'll let you know. That's going to continue, sorry, but we're in a very hostile climate, and with a lot of the conflicts and insecurity about work and all kinds of other facets of our lives, it's mounting up, and unfortunately this is one of the repercussions of it, and it's cause and effect. Okay, North Korea. Now North Korea, let me go over this one. This is I'll put it on the slide just briefly, but let me talk to you about it. North Korea, again, I was accurate. I told them, I had said there will be far more nuclear warheads, you know, he'll be launching, and he did. Now, what I'm seeing, I hope I'm incorrect, as I always do, and I don't mind being wrong, especially on these devastation ones. But what I do see is the North Korea, the Olympics in South Korea. I do see that they do send a contingent, about 17 I see, but it's really a show of not even force, but bravado. He's highly egocentric, psychopath. Sorry, but I think a lot of people know that, unfortunately. he hasn't really developed in maturity. But what I'm seeing is, yes, he is brilliant in quite a few ways, but not in the humane way, in what he's done to his people. But anyway, what I'm talking about is the Olympics. He does send a contingent over. Now, what I do see is that he actually launches, and this is to do with our current president's show of force, or egging him on is a good word for it, literally egging him on. And he wants to not exactly threaten, but he wants to show that his capabilities are real. So he does launch a nuclear warhead, and it basically goes over the heads of during the the Winter Olympics. And quite frankly, he doesn't care about his own people regarding even the Olympic representatives, if not that they die, but it won't be a hit. It'll be over into the ocean. But I do see that happening, not immediately, but about when there's more crowds in there. So he wants to show force now. Now, regarding his future endeavors, I do see that he is getting closer and closer into international waters towards America. But more also, even closer than that, is China. And what's so sad is they have been actually, I believe, sending oil over there. So it's pretty amazing that they're doing that. But anyway, there are certain people who are focusing on greed than anything else. But I do see a strike, and it's quite devastating to the ocean, which is sad, about 30 miles, 28 to 30 miles away from China more. And that is, again, showing capability that he has to strike America. So he's fulfilling a lot of other personal ambitions, put it that way, objectives, okay? I did say in one that there is a certain mental sickness with him, unfortunately, and that is not letting him see the rationale of what he's doing, that he can literally destroy his own country, but worse, the innocent people in his country and also in South Korea and surrounding all the other surrounding countries. So unfortunately, the president here is only going to make matters worse. By May, it's going to be really bad with the relations, even though there are people in the cabinet who are trying to quieten down this situation, but put at least water on. Well, can't put water, but in fact what they're doing is working. It's as if there's inward fights between the administration and the president. So there's a lot of conflicts, and we'll go into that in a minute. Okay, so back here, moving on. Iran, and I decided, since I was doing North Korea, I'll do Iran, and I'll give you a kind of a slide's worth, but quite frankly, it's a conflict that's going to get worse. There is a whole section of people, and it's mostly youth, that want to break away from the established, very, very restricted regime that's in there now, the clerics rather, and it's so suffocating that they are actually killing their own people who are fighting to go against the established clerics. Okay, but I do see that coming into somewhat of a head in August, where the head of Iran actually backs off and concedes to certain things, but again, there's an agenda, and I do see that there is, how can I say this? There is going to be a retraction later. In other words, it's not what he's conceding to some, to quite large things, but quite frankly, it's really just on for the new TV and news, but he really doesn't follow through, and it gets into a far more restrictive state. So not that they're going to go into civil war with themselves, but they're going to be there's another section which truly hates America, and unfortunately our president is again making that situation worse with relations there as well, and getting it to be more inflamed than it is. So we're looking at a constant, and they are at an ability to, where they're nuclear independent, put it that way. So they're not really aggressive against us except on certain policies and restrictions, but they're having far more conflicts within the structure of their country and their people. But that's going to continue, as a lot of other countries are going to be going through a lot as well. Okay, so let's see now. Just going through a few things here. Flash flooding again, as I talked about it, I put it down. Sorry. Okay, now I'm going to India. There's going to be protests and change. I've covered India, Canada quite a bit. So please go to the slides, and I've already put a lot of things in there. In Canada, I've decided to put predictions for tornadoes and earthquakes. Earthquakes, I've put it in already. I know that there was one in San Francisco, but quite frankly, I don't see anything hugely significant. But off the coast and more northern into California, I do see a 5.9, 6.2, but really midway. It's disturbing, but nothing really significant at this moment. Really. So basically that's it. Now I do also want to cover new medical discoveries. I do see that there is going to be one very, very significant discovery, or at least they're verifying it now. It was discovered last October, late October, November. But they found a gene or some kind of DNA coding. Sorry, but it's hard to find the exact words for what they have, but it's for breast cancer. And by identifying this specific gene, they'll be able to be far more preventative in fighting the harder stage 3 cancer, and even not exactly retract from it, but it's going to make significant side effects, and not side effects, how can I say this? It's going to make significant headway to finding a not ultimate cure, but a kind of a semi-cure, especially for with women with 1 and 2, it would have an effect, and that they could actually help them instead of just trusting chemo. So that's going to take 2 years though to develop. They're going to be having a lot of clinical trials, but they do find that. But with that, later on next year, November, it actually opens a portal and gives them insights for quite a few other discoveries where you can actually, the same thought or the same process could be used to find and not ultimately cure, but prevent colon cancer, and three other cancers. Okay, so hopefully I'm really right on that one. Let's see now. The extremist group, the terrorist group I was talking about, is going to become, this new one is going to have quite a few, as I said, and I know I'm going back and forth, but it will have a significant effect on America and UK, where they will be, the main countries are France as well, the three, and they're going to be literally doing far more small cell activities. They're far more concentrated and very, they keep their cards close to their chest, and very insidious, so watch it. They're going into, they've already started, but they've got cells, and very crafty, and I'm not talking about even the traditional look of what one would imagine from Taliban or ISIS, but they're literally clean cut, and they kind of fit into the cultures of all three, and you never know that they have been turned into converts to these terrorists, where they are so insidious. They've been joining clubs, they've joined social groups, obviously social media, where they are trained psychologically how to infiltrate. And they're in colleges, they're in universities, they're in certain businesses where it's all IT, tech, web design, and any other games, stuff like that. So they're upping the game. So watch for that, and just don't get paranoid. I still remember, on a personal note, that I was being spied on by a neighbor because he was convinced after 9/11 that I was, I guess, a terrorist, which was, literally he was spying on me. But I know what it is like to be, have people be, bigotry and prejudice. I was personally attacked quite a few times when I was a child. So I know what that does, and I'm glad it happened, because it opened my eyes to all the horrors that bigotry and or prejudice can do, and it doesn't do any. We're all the same. We come from all the same original kind of pod of people. We don't need to fight, and we're going into such a different age, a new age of discovery for ourselves, and that's what I'm hoping the books are going to explain, what's on the other side, and how we can interact and get everything that we want. And it's not all about money and power. A lot of people don't understand that. They concentrate on the wrong thing. I'll put out videos and books on this, but it's so important to me as a personal mission that people understand that there's far more here in this world, that we are here about not only love, but understanding of what we are and who we are, and to help others who really do need that, and not be, how can I say this, not be a source of anger and bitterness and rage, where you're being so negative you're not doing anything except hurting yourself horribly. I've also apologized for the lengthy going on about my personal history there, but I just want to make sure that people know what cause and effect has. I read through energy and dimensions, so which is pure energy, and I do want to let people know how it affects your future. You can change your past as well, which is another class completely, but it's about achieving everything you can in this short life that we have been gifted. So I just want you to live it to the fullest and be the happiest you can, and you can be, but you just have to follow what your intuition's saying. I'll put all the help books and identification of all the signs that I'm seeing. That's another video I'll put out well after this one. For those people who are interested, I know quite a few million people, over nearly 2 million I've read for, that I know are searchers. And there are so many more millions that are searching for the answers. And hopefully I'll get a few of them to you. So basically, thank you for joining me on this one, and I'll see you on the next video if you are interested in Europe and Asia, etc. And that's basically the same as this one, but more into the predictions on that one. Thank you again for joining me. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi everybody. Yes, we're back in America here. And I just want to warn you that I do tend to give predictions from other parts of the world as well, just as a start off, if it affects America, and vice versa too, obviously. So if you have time to watch all of it, great. If you don't, I understand. Okay, so we're going to, in this portion as usual, go over America, and I'm going to give you the weather predictions in this portion. Apparently quite a bit came true, unfortunately, but we are looking at, and we'll go into different sections, i.e. snow, blizzards as it's coming up, then it will be typhoons and obviously hurricanes, which I did predict 17, and 17 did come in. Again, unfortunately 3 of them were quite large, and those 2 I believe got right. And if you want to know all the details of what I could research or had time to research, predictions that I got right, it is on a separate video. So it's up to you if you want to go ahead and do that, view that. All right, so we're going over America this time. We're going to have different weather, which sounds weird to say, weather is weather, but the patterns seem to be changing, and you'll see that in February, and the most months here would be February through May, where I've been seeing a lot of blizzards and everything else, but there's a pattern change. So let me go into it. Snow quickly. We are going to even though we've got snow at the moment, there is going to be a blizzard a smaller blizzard, round about the 28th, which is next week. We're filming at the moment, I don't even know which date it is, but anyway, on a Saturday, I think it's the 23rd. Yes, it is, day before Christmas Eve. So anyway, the 23rd of December. So we're looking at about the 28th, there's going to be a blizzard, but it's going to affect this portion more so. And I'll talk about Canada separately, but I hate to say Canada is still going to be under horrible snow warnings and blizzards, hard blizzards. There is a change, as I said before, the Santa Anas did affect us in floods, which unfortunately I got right, with a huge massive floods in Texas, etc. You could watch 2017 another time. But basically the blizzards are going to affect where there's going to be more snow, and again shifting of change of systems, get it right, where you're going to see actually snow, more snow in these areas up here, where traditionally it snows, but it's not as far as sometimes I'm talking about higher elevations. You're going to have deeper snow drifts, which is good, and California too, and it'll go down to Arizona and the higher elevations as well, in Mexico. So it's really the mountain regions that are going to get affected more, see more snow. Blizzards, going back again. Round about January 5th, there's going to be quite a system that's coming in, which is going to really affect, it'll come across, drop snow here, but it's really going to have a huge system where it is going to actually have snow drifting, and it's about from here onwards where you're going to see heavier snow. And again, I'm not covering Canada, but it will definitely affect Canada, but more Ontario and Quebec, and the Great Lakes, where you're going to see the Great Lakes really freeze over. So it's on that point where it's extreme cold. Breaking a few records at this time again, as I said before, which unfortunately came true. We were hitting lower records on weather. And what's strange is round about very early February, around about the 2nd or the end of, it starts really around about July 31st through the 2nd of February, where there's going to be rain. And these storms are actually, in certain points again, here it'll be freezing rain. So it's really sad where you're going to see it right there into that freezing rain zone over here. We're going to be looking at snowdrifts there, but around about February 15th, it's coming in on the 14th late, but so it affects here more. But 15th through the 18th, we're going to have a snow system that's pretty brutal. And from Washington, tip of Washington, over here and right through, it'll affect nearly half of America, where it just sweeps through and real cold. And I am seeing round about a foot and a half, round about New York, Michigan, into the coldest areas here. There are snowdrifts, and I did say there was going to be over 2 feet of snow, which came true, unfortunately. Actually, even more so it came last year. So it's only going to be a build-up again. It goes as far as New Jersey, and into Ohio, in West Virginia, I think just the tip over there. But it certainly affects, obviously, it's going to affect more of Canada there. And it's really moving this way up. So you're going to see in Ontario and Quebec, there's a lot of horrible, New Brunswick, obviously Nova Scotia, Labrador Islands and things like that all of that is going to get affected. So basically, be careful about that one. That's going to be one of the most brutal ones. There's going to be 3 really bad blizzards this year, well, this coming year. And then it will be one around about March 1st. And again, this one actually hits more on Montana and over here. For some reason, Colorado, Denver, all of that area in Colorado gets really, not exactly brutalized, but it certainly gets hit badly. Okay, that one is going to be more brutal, and it kind of ramps up for about another 3.3 above, where it's kind of a cold spell going through, straight through, and affecting all areas of America, even as down as to Texas, down below Louisiana, and there's freezing rain, and so therefore plants, things like that, crops are going to be affected. Even Florida gets a cold spell where it's mostly here, so there are going to be cold crops on the oranges and the fruits. I'm afraid they're going to be a bit devastated. There's going to be freezing, more freezing weather. Usually it's much warmer, obviously, but it is going right through, kind of clipping California there, but it's certainly going to move around to the lower 48s. So anyway, then the last one is going to be around about May 2nd through May 12th, and it's kind of sketchy. It's as if it interrupts itself, but it lasts about 10 to 12 days, and it's really one system, but it splits into 2. And what I'm talking about is it literally, after about 5 days, it goes into a lull, but then it's part of that same system, I see, coming right through again and then sweeping in. That one is pretty close to the one prior to that, and it's pretty brutal too, but it affects only the upper 48, not the lower 48. So it's really going through there, and here at Buffalo, New York, Michigan, Minnesota, Montana, all of that, and Saskatchewan, Manitoba, all of that, Columbia, all of that gets really deluged with a huge amount of snow. And it's a wet snow, and it freezes pretty fast within 2-3 days. So please be careful, get supplies. Just be warned where it's got a lot of black ice, especially in the mid regions, Chicago, Michigan, roundabout there. All of that is pretty brutal, okay? It's just really strange how it affects it, but it is on the tip of Oregon, Washington, but it kind of clips like this. So beware of that, Idaho, and then start swooping down. So that's the snow, the blizzards, and be careful of that, all right? Now we're going to go into tornadoes. This section I know a lot of people are following, mostly tornado chasers, but you know, I really get concerned about that because I want to make sure that you're safe, but unfortunately I can't do too much about that. Anyway, so tornadoes, and what I said before was that you're going to see some really weird tornadoes in weird places. It did happen, as I said, in Florida, and that was really part of Irma, but it was tornadoes. They were tornadoes. You're actually going to see some tornadoes up here in Michigan, some water spouts, which are pretty brutal, but they're on this side, so watch it if you're boating or whatever. And this is more in the summer. The tornadoes are, as I said, and always have since I've been doing the predictions, are moving on a corridor where it was certainly in the middle. It's now moving right. Now, even though it's Santa Ana, it's still, I see the effects of Santa Ana being still here. It doesn't have a cutoff, but I do feel it'll go through until July, August next year. I'm sure, you know, you can look that up. I don't know if I'm wrong or what, but I'm just giving you what I see. But the effects of Santa Ana have really shifted weather systems as well. And I do believe also that there's more water in the sea because of melting ice caps. It is not a myth. There is such a thing as, I better not get into the politics here, but quite frankly, we are ruining our earth here. We're not taking care of it. But basically, we are going to see far more harsher, and I said before that the tornadoes, it wasn't a bad year compared to a few years, 2 years back, but we are going to see some F4s, F3s, and of that ilk anyway. And I'll tell you where they're going to be. We're going to see at least 2 F5s, and I'm sorry, but I'm getting my notes here. But we're going to see an F5 here, and 2 F5s, but they're going to concentrate more on the middle corridor here. And it'll be midsummer, around about middle July to end of July, where we're going to see searing heat again, breaking a few more records again, I'm afraid. We're going to see that it's not like 120 going into 120, places going into really deep kind of shock with the extreme heats, but also offsetting that, we're going to see a lot of flooding because of that. And it's to do with tornadoes. Tornadoes are part of that system, really. But basically, we're going to see a swatch of tornadoes which are going through. There are about 17 in one tornado here, where you're going to get hit really about here with an F5, where it just, one develops, actually it looks like 3 developing from F2s, F1 to F2s, and it takes a widespread through, but it just continues for about 3-4 days. And it's quite devastating, I'm afraid. But also there is another one that comes in, and it kind of goes weird, but the storm system's like going through Wyoming, but goes through Nebraska, and it stops, it starts, it starts, it stops, and it goes in a kind of a loop, like, well, kind of a wave like that. You're going to see into Kansas at the tip only, several tornadoes here in that valley, in that section here. Texas in the northern tip again is going to get affected by tornadoes, Oklahoma, and Missouri a few. There will be kind of a few in this. It's really pertaining to another hurricane, but there are going to be some tornadoes here. And off the coast of California, I see two. Ventura County, Santa Barbara, around about there, okay? So basically on the tornadoes, we are going to see isolated ones in Pennsylvania even, in really strange spots, as I said, where you normally wouldn't see it, but it's in scatter zone, literally in scatter zone. Let's go into hurricanes. I do see two. I know there were, I didn't even check, but I don't know if there were some hurricanes coming in from here. Anyway, so it's coming in, and they're coming in from here and then making a loop, but they really don't come near any of the California coast or the Baja California coast in Mexico. There is one that is coming in here, and I'll move it slightly, where they're coming in from here, and it comes in and, comes in and then swoops round, kind of, it's about force 2, it looks as if it's going to be a 3, it touches on a 3, but it really doesn't, turns from a tropical storm here into an F1, F2, comes in, kind of brushes Haiti, which I'm glad, poor things, they've already been devastated with earthquakes and everything else, but it comes in and then loops, where it loops and then comes down to an F1, gains again momentum, as if there's a hot zone there, it actually builds to an F2 to F3, possibly, hits that, producing a I can't even say, a large landmass, and then comes in here from Mexico and then goes into Mexico. So it looks like an F3 to an F4 when it hits into Mexico here, and with residual rain, and the rain goes into Texas over here as well. So just to let you know that that is going to be a source of flooding, mostly in this section here, okay, into that. Now the flooding, I did say last year, unfortunately, I saw in Texas and Louisiana and all of this belt here, and a lot of it also happened because of the Hurricane Harvey, and it affected and made inland inroads and flooding there, mass flooding. But we are going to see round about August a bad system, and this system is so violent. It's it creates tornadoes. It does do quite a bit of harm, but it's a storm system coming in from up here, which is kind of strange, but anyway, it comes in, that I see, it comes from there, and it's really, really hot here in Nevada, Arizona, in August, early August, around about the 3rd through the 12th, and just travels through, but it gains heat, and it just gets worse and worse, hits Texas and through the middle portion of Texas, and try and get in here a bit more, and it kind of goes through, other than tip, kind of brushes Lubbock, I'm sorry, Dallas, Abilene, Austin, and kind of brushes into Houston. So it really goes through here, and the system is quite brutal. There's a lot of rain. We're going to experience a lot of other flooding actually in Kansas. I'm seeing floods in July, and in weird kind of spots again, and it's a weather that's just a deluge, where some are really wanting rain and needing rain, but they're not getting it. Even in West Virginia there's flooding, more rain than normally. It's about 3 to 4 inches flooding there. New Mexico, not as much, but it's basically Georgia. You're going to get a lot of flooding near Atlanta. I see the airport getting a bit flooded. Flight delays, obviously, and then there's a kind of a dry zone in Arkansas, which is strange. But anyway, flooding in this part again, and this is to do with a hurricane coming in, I'm afraid, and the northern tip from Orlando upwards into Georgia here, and again that's to do with a hurricane. Okay. Basically on fires, unfortunately, we're going to see a big fire here in Washington. Excuse me, California. I know we're still, they're still battling fires there, but it's going to be more or less died down, but it'll start up again in July as there's brush, but it's more in the mountains, not in... And some of those were deliberately set, obviously. Unfortunately, I hope they do catch those, and they are murderers who are those, and I can see who they are, but I'm not going to say. But basically kids. But anyway, so be warned, there are going to be fires here in this section again. Not so much in Southern California. There are going to be some in San Diego, just outside, near Encinitas, and not so much Carlsbad, but on the touch of Carlsbad. Okay, fires in there are some fires in Montana, but that's in the mountains, and Nebraska a few. We're going to get in the Yellowstone Park. I'm afraid there's going to be quite a large fire. And it'll be late July, mid to late July, and I think that was stupidity of somebody trying to light a fire, but anyway, that's so sad because a lot of animals get killed. So there's fires there, there's small fires here, sporadic in New Mexico again, but in the mountains. But these are lightning strikes and other things, because we're going to see a lot more lightning, by the way. Okay, and that is something crucial for you to know, that just to protect yourself. All right, there's odd little ones in Kentucky, and they're mostly on, not really in rural areas. South Carolina, there's a few, Virginia, in here, Florida, it's not as bad, but there are small little things going on. It's more Texas, I'm afraid, is going to get hit again with rain more than anything else, and tornadoes at the top, and hurricanes at the bottom. So basically that's it.